All right, so today we have Claire Vo, Chief Product Officer at LaunchDarkly and founder at a new startup called ChatPRD.ai. So Claire, welcome to the Generative AI in the Real World podcast.
Thanks for having me. This will be really fun.
So let's start off actually with ChatPRD because I'm fascinated by this whole space in general. So what, at this point in its evolution, Claire, so what specific tasks does ChatPRD perform for product managers?
Yeah, so ChatPRD is an AI co-pilot for product managers and people who do product work or build products. And really the goal of the product is to make more efficient people who need to generate ideas, document requirements, build out technical specs, market products. And so it's really a asset generator for product people. It makes PRDs, product requirements documents. In addition, so it increases the efficiency and speed of product work, but it also improves the quality of product work. So it also acts as a on-demand coach or colleague that can help up-level your strategic thinking, your technical thinking, or the detail required to make a product idea a really successful product.
Yeah, so the equivalent of, I've joked about this in the past. If there were an internal GitHub in a company, I want my co-pilot to learn from the rock stars, the 100X programmers, right?
100%. I think that's exactly right. And one of the things that I think is going to make a 100X PM, and in fact, I think our old headline on the ChatPRD website used to be become a 10X PM. You know, one of the ways I think you do that is by embracing tools and accelerating your work. And so it is, yes, learning from the best, but it's also learning how to scale, doing your best in a highly efficient way. And, you know, the testimonials that we get that I think are the most high impact are, I have gotten 2 to 3 days back in my week based on this tool. If you have 2 to 3 days back in your week, you can do a lot in terms of upskilling, learning new things, helping your team, talking to customers. And I think it's this combination of learn from the best, use tools, and then use your own time really efficiently that's going to help you become a great PM.
Yeah, that's why I always tell people, always design your application so you're model agnostic, right? So,
well, you know what's a really great platform for doing that is LaunchDarkly.
okay.
You know, what's really interesting, this is exactly the hypothesis I had when I joined LaunchDarkly, is LaunchDarkly is a feature management experimentation platform that really allows engineers to decouple the configuration and release of their code from deploying their code into production. And so I can change how code works. I can change if code is on and off without actually having to redeploy. And in thinking about joining the company earlier this year, one of the hypotheses I had is, you know, and as an AI builder, prompt matters, model matters, configuration matters. I want to be able to switch those. I want to be able to tune those. And I don't want to have to deploy every time I want to test something new. And so we're actually building a lot of first-class product around this problem space at LaunchDarkly. We're already seeing our customers basically use our existing platform to do it, but the developer experience is not, 10 out of 10. I really want to make that developer experience 10 out of 10, but it is a real problem. I face it every day. And I think LaunchDarkly has some interesting solutions coming to the market soon.
So basically the models and the prompts just become like feature flags.
Yeah, they become feature flags. You can test them against each other. You can roll them out. You can measure things like latency or token count, input and output. And then you can make really informed decisions about what configuration works best. And I think the other thing that's really important here is you give access, because it's in a UI, because it's in a web application separate from code. You can give folks like product managers access to tune things like prompts and models and upgrades without having to tap an engineer on the shoulder and say, can you delete this one sentence from the prompt?
So essentially you have this experimentation platform that anyone can use and track other ongoing experiments, previous experiments that may not have worked. Basically, something that I've been trying to get people to embrace, because basically a lot of times people go into these meetings with opinions, but not enough data.
Yeah, and I I say is that, it's important in regular software development to have the flexibility to experiment and configure, to fix something very quickly if it's broken. All that really matters in classic application, web application, software development generally. It matters even more when you're building software backed by a non-deterministic model, because your ability to predict quality goes down and the potential array of outcomes gets larger. And so if you are not at the beginning thinking, how do I instrument this AI-backed application to be iterated on, to be changed? How do I not have the FOMO of a great frontier model gets released and it takes me 2 days to upgrade because I have to rip out a whole bunch of old code and put in some new code? I think all those things are even more important when you're working with these non-deterministic systems, because, as we say, it doesn't really matter till you test it in production, right? And you can't predict what users will put in, and you can't predict necessarily what these models will put out. And so I really think that runtime control matters a lot, especially if you're doing products like this.
So going back to ChatPRD, right? So knowing what you know now, obviously you guys are still in the early stages, right? So how would you change your career if you were starting out now?
I'm giving a talk about this at the Lenny Summit next week. So we'll get a little preview of this depending when the podcast comes out. But this is what I would say. I am telling product managers a couple things right now. One is I have been through a couple technology waves in my career, and this is the one that has stopped me in my tracks. It has been the one that has most deeply radicalized me about the future of building software, because the differences in what was possible and what is now possible is unbelievable. It's multiples upon multiples of change. And the kind of example I give is I did a startup 10 years ago. I raised venture capital. I hired a little team and I built a SaaS product. And I am pretty sure if I sat down in 2 days on Saturday and got a cup of coffee, I could rebuild that whole product before lunchtime. And that is the level of efficiency that I think is available to people with good ideas and hard skills. And so if I think about that, I think people with careers need to be prepared for a couple things. One, I think you're going to be expected to do more as an individual contributor. Everybody's going to be expected to do more because the ability to do more is powered by these tools and automations. And so I highly recommend folks educate themselves on two aspects. One is how to automate the tasks of their current job and make them more efficient. Something like if you're a product manager, how to use ChatPRD. And the second thing is how do you skill up additional skills using some of these generative AI tools? For example, if you're a product manager, how do you learn to code? And so one is I think you really need an upskilling. It changes how you think about the growth of your career. If you think organizations are going to change, I think ICs are going to become more important. And we're going to have to figure out how to compensate and title ICs in a way that incentivizes that path, different from management. I think management is going to look different in the shape of shifting organizational shape. But I think the third thing that I always leave these conversations, these ideas with is I think everybody can get more ambitious. People think, oh, Claire's saying there'll be less PMs, less people managers. And so there's less for me to do. I should be worried about my job. And in fact, I say the opposite, which is you can start to get really ambitious as an individual, really ambitious as a company. And so what I think is more people will be empowered to do more things and have bigger impact. But, as a friend said, the only people that have something to worry about are the people that think they don't have anything to worry about, which is if you're not thinking my job is going to change in the next 3 to 5 years, you're probably one of the roles that are going to get disrupted. And I would rather be ahead of the curve. And I think folks need to start thinking that way. If you are embracing these tools, you're probably early and you really have an opportunity to stand out in your career. So I would say lean in and lean in hard. And for folks that are not doing it, you're going to be left behind.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the O'Reilly podcast, Generative AI in the Real World. If you want to listen to the full version, please log in to the platform at O'Reilly.com.